over 17,000 islands lying on a volcanic ring of fire stretching over 5,000 kilometers. A country of 250 million people that speak over 700 dialects. The most populous Muslim country in the world that, however, is not an Islamic state. Indonesia. Located in Southeast Asia, between the waters of the Indian Ocean and the Pacific, Indonesia has been inhabited since the times of Homo erectus, known as Java man, who lived on these islands 1.5 million years ago. In the first centuries of the modern era, Indonesians maintained close links with Indians, so that with time they adopted their culture and religion, Hinduism as well as Buddhism, evidence of which can be found in the splendid Javan temples of Prambanan and Borobudur that survive to the present. In the 13th century, Arab traders brought Islam to these islands and, with time, gained an increasing number of followers. The search for cloves and sandalwood saw the arrival of the Portuguese on the archipelago in the 16th century, followed by Spaniards and the Dutch. The Dutch East India Company subjugated most of the countries of Java and controlled Indonesia's trade, in due course annexing the country as a Dutch colony. Dutch rule lasted from 1605 right up to the Japanese occupation in 1942. An independent Republic of Indonesia was proclaimed in 1945 by Sukarno, the country's first president and the nation's founder. In 1965, General Suharto took control after a mysterious coup d'etat. The transitory period was a dark time of ethnic cleansing, directed particularly against the Chinese minority and the country's intelligentsia, charged with maintaining contacts with communism. The many years of Suharto's authoritative rule, though characterized by economic prosperity as well as oppressive policies directed at ethnic and religious minorities, ended in 1998 with the Asiatic economic crisis and student protests. And so began the Reformasi period, characterized by a gradual return to democracy. Of 200 million Indonesians, approximately 87% are Muslim, mainly Sunni. There are numerous other groups, a few with a vociferous fundamentalist bent, though a tolerant Islam based on Javan traditions dominates. A saying that has become widespread claims that Indonesia presents Islam's smiling face. Though the world's biggest Muslim country, Indonesia has not become an Islamic state. It remains an experiment of peaceful coexistence of various religions, reflected in the country's motto, unity in diversity. This is not, however, a laic country. Faith in God, reflected in the country's 6 official religions, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Catholicism and Protestantism, is reflected in the nation's constitution. The country is based on Pancasila, 5 principles formulated by President Sukarno: the already mentioned belief in God, a just and civilized humanity, national unity, democracy and social justice. Christians from various denominations make up about 12% of Indonesia's population. 3%, 7 million Indonesians, admit to being Catholic. The circumstances of Christians, however, vary considerably from region to region. The island of Flores is practically uniquely inhabited by Catholics, whilst Sharia law applies in the special autonomous district of Aceh. In spite of instances of discrimination, the number of Christians in Indonesia continues to grow, especially in the bigger cities, which is linked to migration as well as a tolerance towards conversions.
Kebudayaannya sangat terbuka, sangat toleran.
Here, the culture is very open and tolerant, so that the Catholic Church in Yogyakarta and Semarang Archdiocese in general has been flourishing in many ways.
Subur dalam arti banyak hal. Namun, nyatanya dalam banyak tempat.
But in fact, in many places, there are major difficulties. For example, some efforts to ask for permission to build churches within this Jakarta Archdiocese, in this mega city, I take the worst case, have to wait 24 years, or 10 to 15 years on average, with varying difficulty. There is even a case in which the government had given permission, but communities reject it.
Masyarakat menolak.
Kita sebagai umat Islam jangan lemah sama orang-orang Nasrani
Problems with obtaining church building permits apply especially to Western Java. In most cases, these do not arise because of the opposition of Muslim neighbors, but rather as a result of often hostile protests organized by radical groups. But above all, because of a prolific number of formal obstacles put up by local authorities. The deteriorating state of religious freedom was underlined in a report by Human Rights Watch published in 2013 that sharply criticized previous President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono for idleness in the face of increasingly radical cases of human rights abuses, describing him as co-responsible for the persecution of religious minorities. Considerable hope of change comes with the election of young President Joko Widodo, who won mass sympathy from Indonesians. The influence of radical Muslims arriving from Arab countries raises questions about the likelihood of Indonesia becoming another Iraq or Pakistan. Will it remain an example of democracy and peaceful, tolerant coexistence? The Indonesian model encourages hope.